Hi everyone and welcome back to National League Lowdown with me, Dan. Today we're going to be covering Yeovil's sacking of Mark Cooper that was announced earlier today. As always, I'm joined by Craig. How are you, mate? You okay?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Looking forward to getting Ethan's thoughts on this and all things Yeovil at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Ethan, nice to see you again, mate. Obviously, you joined us a couple of weeks ago. Good to have you back. Obviously, in different circumstances this time. So, just obviously, what's your reaction? How's the fan base feeling about the news that was announced today?
I think it's largely positive among the fan base. We're quite happy with the sacking of Mark Cooper after the start to this season and the end to last season.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've seen that online myself. There's been a lot of people happy with the decision. Names getting thrown around that we'll mention a bit later on, but I know Craig's got a really good question for you. So, Craig, floor's yours.
Yeah, so we had you on after game week 2 and we talked about Yeovil obviously in their slow start, only getting 1 point from the first 2 games. You said you'd give him 10 games. Speaking to yourself yesterday, that had changed. Why had it changed? What was the feeling that made you change your ideas there?
I think it's the manner in which we lost definitely acted as a catalyst for his departure. I think that losing in that manner is unacceptable in any sort of circumstance. But when you're under pressure and you've got to deliver and losing in that sort of manner, it's just unacceptable. And I think that's what gave Prabhu and Stuart Robbins the idea of maybe let's move on and find a new manager now.
Yeah, definitely. I think the manner, we've mentioned it in the group chat and stuff, but I think if you maybe lose that game 1-0, there is question marks, but also I think it's the manner. You're 3-0 up at half time, you're coasting. Was there any, catalyst for that to go so wrong in the second half?
I think it was our change in system, to be honest. I think after 3-1, we changed our shape. We went to a five at the back. We took off Josh Sims, who was one of our better players, and we brought on Carl Ferguson at centre half, and we decided to try and soak up the pressure, and it's not worked in the first 4 or 5 games. Sort of soaking up the pressure and hitting teams on the counter attack. We're not that sort of team. We're a team that's got good quality players that can play football on the front foot, and I don't think Cooper was getting the best out of his players. Again, causing his departure. If we lost the game 1-0, I think there's still question marks over whether he'd have been sacked or not. I personally don't think he would have been, but again, the issue was we weren't scoring goals, and again, that's not going to get you many results in a results based business. Then you're not gonna stay in your job for very long, and losing in that manner, you definitely have to walk after.
Yeah, if we just turn our opinions to his post match interviews, I listened quite carefully to the Braintree one, and it seemed that he was almost watching a different game to a lot of people. I watched that game very closely, being there, and he said you had like 15 clear cut chances, and then yesterday he seemed to be throwing a lot of players under the bus. I think that was probably the beginning of the end for him. Was those interviews after the game as well? Really lost trust in his players, and ultimately the other way around as well.
Well, when the fourth goal went in, I was watching the game. The fourth goal went in, and before full time, he headed straight down the tunnel. Showed no appreciation to the fans, and in the post match interview, I actually thought that the assistant who's now in charge, Rich Drysden, would have took the interview because that's happened before. I think when we got relegated from the National League, I think Chris Todd took the interview instead. He threw a lot of players under the bus yesterday, and he was right in saying that we were very good in the first half, but anyone could see that in the second half. We still had a couple of chances where we could have won the game, but ultimately, I think it was the system that lost us the game yesterday, and he's not he's not taking responsibility for our shortcomings. And as a leader, you can't really have that, especially you won't be able to get the players back on side after throwing them under the bus. The players would not want to play for a manager like that. If we go to our player turnover, we've had over 40 players in the last 2 seasons. We've had some top quality players. We had our captain Matt Worthington leave on a free to Oldham after getting his contract terminated. There's rumours to have for him to have fell out with a lot of players. We've lost a lot of players, a lot of good quality players to Torquay United, and they're now second in the NLS, and they're starting to really pick up results where maybe they haven't in the last 2 or 3 seasons. because we've lost so many quality players because of alleged fallings out, or they don't fit the system that he wants to play. And I think he's very stubborn in his system. He's not going to want to play a different style of football because he thinks that this style of football gets results, but ultimately it's not. Some managers just won't. Some managers won't learn that you've got to adapt your system instead of the players having to adapt. You've got to get the players who have individual quality. For example, Junior Mariah. So you've got to get him playing in the role and the way that he knows, the way that he's going to play best, and we're going to score goals and he's going to get assists if he's played right under the right management. I think this team can really flourish. We've got some real quality in this team, and I think we'll get onto some potential candidates for the new job. I think a lot of them would get the good results out of this team and add where we need.
Yeah, I think for me, it's a management problem in general these days. A lot of managers now that have no adaptation. They just want to play their way. If the players don't fit the system, they're gone. It's very rigid. They don't have any room for manoeuvre. And I think obviously, your manager was one of them, and ultimately they end up paying the price because it ends up going down that you blame the players. They end up having faults with the fans, not doing interviews, things like that, and it all ends up going the same way. And we've seen it over and over again over the years. And I think now, especially in non-league, I think in particular, you have to be able to adapt because you just got to win games at all costs, especially when you've got games coming thick and fast like we do in this league. Saturday, Monday, or Saturday, Tuesday, and it's like you've just got to find a way to win. The teams that go up this season or do well this season will be the teams that have just found a way to win. And if anything, against Gateshead in particular, it was like you found a way to lose.
It definitely seemed harder to lose. At 3-0 up, they created next to nothing in the first half. We could have had a couple more. And we got the quality on the bench as well. We had Aaron Jarvis on the bench yesterday, Tavon Campbell and Ben Wadsku, who are all capable of scoring goals in this league. And I think if we continue to play on the front foot, maybe it's down to a bit of player complacency as well. But I feel like after one goal, changing the system really doesn't help that.
Yeah, I mean, from 3-0 coasting to, even if you concede one, you wouldn't expect a capitulation. But like you've mentioned a couple of times there, it depends on the relationship between the manager and the players. They've maybe seen that substitution and potentially thought, I don't agree with that myself. Why has he took Sims? He scored. Why has he took him off? Things like that. And these are all the things that you see at any football team that are maybe there's question marks over the manager. They all kind of head the same way. But yeah, I think just from what I've seen today, I think the fan base are generally happy with the decision. I've seen a few names getting thrown around. So the first question I wanted to ask you would be, who would you like to see replace him personally yourself?
My ideal replacement, I'd say Scott Bartlett from Western-super-Mare. He's got a lot of ex-Yeovil players where he is now, and players that sort of haven't fitted the Mark Cooper system, and they're flourishing in the National League South in the sort of past 2 seasons. And I think he's very good with, obviously Western-super-Mare won't have a big budget for that league, but he's very good at getting players on side with his ambition and his vision for what he wants out of a team. He's got players like Will Dawes and Sam Pearson who could have made it in the National League quite easily under a different manager and in a new system. And I think that he'll definitely get the best out of our squad. And I think it would also show intent from our new ownership group if we pay off a team like, for example, Western-super-Mare to get Bartlett in, or Truro to get John Askey in, because they're struggling at the moment and he's probably a manager that's above the level. I think it would show real intent from the ownership group on what they want to do for the club, and they're about sustainable growth. And I think the way to do that is with a really solid manager, builds a really good foundation and a good relationship with the players, which will keep us ticking in the National League until we're ready and those players are flourishing. Then maybe we can go on a playoff push, or we can get right up there if we get a good core group of players together.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to ask you. Obviously, it's still early days as well, so the season can easily turn around with a few good results here and there. So whoever comes in, they get off to a flyer, you'll soon start climbing that table. So I think that the decision with it being so early, everything can be rectified, everything can be fixed. So obviously you mentioned John Askey there, and obviously we know he's based down that area. And I was going to ask you myself, because as a Carlisle fan, we've suffered with this quite a lot over the years, where it's more of a catchment area. It's like you're kind of looking at the managers that are based down there, because I did see someone mention Derek Adams, obviously recently left Morecambe, but I was like, obviously he's based up here, up north, so it's like, would he go down there and travel that far? You have to take them things into account, don't you?
Yeah, I think the catchment area of Yeovil is not exactly ideal. That's why we moved our training facilities actually this summer to Bristol, to try and get players from that sort of area. Maybe some players from Rovers and City, obviously Western-super-Mare, maybe across from Cardiff, Swansea, places like that. I feel like a manager that's Southwest based would, as we recruit locally as well. I think a manager Southwest based might know some players and be able to build relationships through those players as well. So, for example, Bartlett or John Askey, based in the Southwest, I feel like they'll be the right men for the job, because they understand the area as well, and they'll understand quite quickly what the town wants.
Absolutely. I've got a slightly rogue shout for you here, but I think location could play a factor in if you think you could potentially sway him or not. We've all seen the pictures a few months ago of Luke Williams, obviously working out of Bristol Airport after leaving Swansea. Do you think he's someone that's worth kind of getting the feelers out just to see if he is looking? I know it's probably a step maybe too far for him down the ladder at the moment, but it's one I'd definitely be sending the feelers out.
But he's managed in this league before, and he's proven in this league. Yeah, he's managed in this league before. I'm not too sure if he'd be the right fit for the club, but I feel like with the managerial experience that he's gained in the Championship, it would definitely have taught him a lot of things. With, for example, with high quality players, maybe he can bring those high quality players in, new connections from players, maybe young players that it hasn't worked out for, because it's not too far, Swansea, and the it's sort of within the catchment area of training. So maybe, but I feel like someone with a bit more intent, with a bit more of a winning factor about them. And I don't know if Luke Williams will really know or buy into what the town of Yeovil wants, where someone more local might. I think it's definitely worth consideration, because he's got a proven track record in this league with Notts County, and if he wants to relocate, then by all means, I reckon he'd do a decent job. But I feel like I've got the managers that I feel like we should bring in. I think they're sort of above what Williams can offer us.
Yeah, I mean, I seen Lee Johnson. I seen Lee Johnson as a name mentioned on social media. I mean, obviously, I think probably nostalgia's kicking in there a little bit, and obviously he's a bit of a legend and things. So would that be something that you think could potentially happen?
For me, I wouldn't want him in charge. No, I feel like Yeovil needs a new era. I think we need to leave sort of the last 10 years behind. Lee did fantastic things as a player at this football club, and his family are well recognised around, with Gary being the manager that took us to the Championship. But I think that we need to leave that sort of era behind us, and try and move forward with someone new and a new group of players to get the town sitting at Hewish Park again, enjoying football. Our attendances could easily be so much higher. They just need something to support. In the National League South, we were getting quite often 5,000-6,000 fans in the stadium, and that stadium's absolutely rocking, and an awful place to go to when you've got something to get behind.
Yeah, I mean that'll play into the style of play, won't it? So I think that might be a factor as well, as to who you bring in, as to how they play football. Because, like I say, yesterday's game, if you're getting entertaining games like that, fair enough, you want to be on the right side. But if you're getting
Yeah.
entertaining games like that, then your attendances are going to go higher and higher every week. But when you're getting drab 0-0s, or scraping a 1-0, or losing 1-0, it happened at Carlisle for a long time. We were getting like 6,000 up here some weeks, and then you get games where it was 0-0, there was nothing, and then the week after there'd be like 3,000. And it's as much as fickle as it sounds, people want to be entertained. They want to get the value for money, don't they?
Yeah, they want to see goals. That's what they want to see. They want to see attack. They want to see exciting football, attacking football.
Yeah, exactly. They want to see. That's exactly what they want to see. But yeah, like I say, so obviously they were the names that you mentioned. Obviously, John Askey, Scott Bartlett. Any other names that you've seen that you think could be worth a shout as well?
I've seen a couple names that I wouldn't personally agree with. We had Steve Cottrell, who had a stint at Forest Green, did all right. He did okay. Obviously knows the area, but I don't feel like he'd be the right manager for us. All we're looking for as a club right now is stability with the ownership group and the management team. We've not had that in the last 10 years, which is why things have gone so badly wrong for us. The last long-serving manager, I'd say, was Gary Johnson, and that was where we had our success in the EFL. So it's definitely no doubt that stability will definitely play a big factor. I think we just need someone for the long term who really invests and buys into the area, and gets the fans off their seats with some exciting football.
Yeah, I agree. And just before we finish up, do you have any idea potentially when we might get the announcement of a new manager? Do you think it might be over the next few days, or they might take the time with it and to have a long process?
I feel like a long process is one that's needed. I feel like Richard Drysden's definitely competent enough in his coaching to get decent results out of these players in the interim. I don't think he's a long-term fit for us. Obviously, we'll see how he gets on at Halifax on Saturday. But I think that with him as assistant manager and someone with a real vision at the helm, I think this team can be quite successful. We've got some great players, as I keep saying, and I think a longer process would suit us better. Maybe give it a few weeks. I wouldn't want a rash decision made again within a few days because it might not be the right fit.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think sometimes you just have to look at it and think we need to be really picky and choosy about who we want because we need that clear vision. And I think that's really important, like I say, at any level, but especially in non-league, you need to know what you're going to get from. Are they going to improve the players that you've got? Are they going to need a whole squad overhaul again? Because obviously you can't do that. So, you need to have all this in mind. So yeah, but like I say, that's it from us. It was just a quick one. Thank you, Ethan, for joining us and giving a Yeovil perspective on everything. Thanks to Craig for joining us as well. And we'll be back very soon with our latest review of the weekend's games. We've got Jazz Singer as a guest coming on from Tamworth. We're really looking forward to that, but we'll catch you all again soon. Take care.